On May 6, 2017, I lost my husband. That sounds so innocuous, doesn't it? I lost my husband. As if somehow I misplaced him. As if I set him down somewhere and forgot to pick him back up. As if I let him out of my sight and forgot the last place I saw him. The truth is, I didn't lose my husband. He died. People always say to me, I don't know how you do this. They don't know just how close you and I have grown. Faith, you are how I push through. Faith, you are how I am okay. Faith, you are the reason I did not give up. Without you, I would have allowed myself to fall short of God's glory. Without you, I would not have trusted God, and what a scary, lonely place that would be. Faith, you are the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen. But you are also the source of power and strength that I never knew I needed so much. My faith in God, His promises, His word, are the answers to how I survived this chapter of my life. Without my faith in God, the story would have ended far worse. The pages of my life would have read quite differently. But with my faith, I will continue to push through, because although the grief journey is tough, I also know I will never walk it alone. This is my love letter to you, about my feelings for you, a letter to not giving up, not giving in, and learning to walk by faith every step of the way. May the lessons I've learned, the stories I've shared, and the letters I've written be an inspiration to that broken heart I experienced the day I lost my husband. May my heartbreak be a source of light to help another broken heart find its way out of the darkness that grief creates. Just come again. Welcome to Love Letter to Grief. This is a show we do every Sunday. I have a guest that comes on that shares their love letter to grief and just helps us understand the relationship and who they lost. And if you guys are wondering why I titled the book Love Letter to Grief, it's because grief is one of those things that is very, very tough. And I feel like once we accept that grief is a part of our life, it becomes that much more helpful to kind of help us get through it. So that's what the show is about. If you guys are coming in, it may get a little emotional. Stick it out. I promise you guys you can handle it. Okay, so I'm going to read my letter and then we're going to bring in our guest who's Ruby Shoes. Okay, this was a letter that I wrote 1 week after my husband passed away. Okay, dear grief, I opened my eyes after sleeping for hours, my head feeling foggy, my eyes swollen, my heart pounding, and hearing myself breathing ever so softly. It was the Monday after the funeral, and everyone has gone home. The second both of my eyes opened, the tears flowed like never before. I had cried the previous days, but this cry was different. I don't have anywhere to be. I don't have any calls I need to make. There's nothing I need to do. Therefore, I just lie in bed, sobbing uncontrollably as what is left of my already broken heart continues to shatter even more. I can't make sense of this agony. I can't make it stop. I can't control myself whatsoever. And what a scary place this is. I'm a prisoner of this pain, this sorrow, this sadness, this feeling unlike anything I've ever experienced. I never knew the human body could hold these many tears, so many that I wonder how I didn't drown. I'm literally lying in misery, being tormented and covered in distress. Am I going crazy? Am I losing my mind? Am I losing myself? Am I going to die from being in this much pain that I'm experiencing? How can one survive feeling this way? There's no way on earth I can endure this pain that I'm physically, emotionally, and spiritually undergoing. Can a person die from a broken heart? What is this unbelievable, unbearable feeling that has taken over my body? I ask myself. It's like nothing I've ever experienced, nothing I've ever read or heard about. I realize that what I'm feeling is the exact opposite of love. It is grief. I hate you, grief. You stole something from me I will never get back. You took away a light that once shined in me and that optimistic spirit I always had. You've crippled me to this bed while making me question everything I've always believed. You will never be able to coexist with me. I refuse to continue to let you consume me. Grief. You are making sure that I paid the ultimate price for loving my husband. This relationship I'm being forced to have with you is one I never wanted. But as the days, weeks, and months pass, I hope to understand how to handle you and this heavy burden that I've been handed to deal with. I will continue to walk with my head held high, even on the days when my heart are the heaviest. I will accept that you, grief, will become a part of me. So that was, like I say, the letter I wrote the week after he passed away. And sometimes I read these letters and it takes me straight back to where I was, because I remember when someone first passes away, everybody's at your house, everybody's calling. But I just remember that Monday after the funeral just being such a eerie silence that it was one of the scariest moments, because even though I knew people would be checking on me, it was still a tough time to go through. So we're going to bring in our guest for today, which is Ruby Shoes, and she's going to share her love letter with all of us. Absolutely. And thank you guys so much for being here. Hi, love.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I feel like I'm in an interrogation room. That light's really bright.
So, if you want to tell everyone about yourself and your relationship with who you're reading the letter about, or you can get started, it's however you want to do it.
I'm Ruby. I'm going to talk about my mom.
And I know it may get difficult, so just take your time, and we're all here for you.
And there's lots of people I love here, which makes me happy. And ironically, I shaved my eyebrow off last night, so we're going to keep it all look real. Okay. I never got to hold your hand and say goodbye that last night. I didn't get to say I love you one last time before you left. I take solace in the fact that you didn't know it was your last day. You were laughing, watching Murder, She Wrote, eating lasagna, and tormenting my sister. What I miss the most is the sound of your laugh. I miss the touch of your hand, the way you used to play with my hair and call me half pint from the time I was little until a grown woman, when I would come in the house, 45 years old, and the first thing I would do is sit on the floor so you would play with my hair. The look on people's faces when you walked in the room, the way their eyes would light up, the smells in the kitchen, listening to you talk about how exciting it was to eat a potato with cottage cheese, like it's a potato, but you took so much joy in eating a potato that all I wanted to do was eat potatoes. I never knew anybody who loved red as much as you did, and the thought of eating toast. You got a brand new toaster for your birthday and it was red, and you took the old one and you threw it out on the front step. The fact that when you were in the room, we were happy, we were laughing. We knew that it was okay to just be who we were. The look of disgust on your face when at 80 years old, I pleaded with you for 2 days to try watermelon for the first time. I'm not eating that, it's disgusting. And then you tasted it and you loved it, and I think you ate it every day until the day you died after that. Thank you for how much you loved me, how much you celebrated all of us, and for how you reminded us that it doesn't matter what's happening on any given day. What matters is where you lay your head and where you share your love. From the ridiculous ways that you would celebrate every single holiday, even the ones that nobody even knew existed, and you would keep the decorations up from February to the next holiday. So our friends would come in and go like, why is it Valentine's Day in April? And it's because Easter's not here yet. We live two lives now. Life before you were gone, and now life after you're gone. And I remember saying in the eulogy that the sky will never be as blue and the stars will never shine as bright because you're not with us. And for a really long time, I thought that was going to be true. And you've been gone now for almost 4 years. And for a really long time, it didn't really seem like there was a whole lot of reason to keep going around trying to celebrate things that didn't matter because you weren't here. Trying to find joy in things when we knew that we couldn't talk to you and share it with you. And I didn't realize how important you celebrating my success mattered. And it's made me wonder over these last few years if I'm living my life for me or if I was living my life for you. And when I get down and I want to give up, I know that if I did, that you would take a wooden clog off and smack me on the ass and say, snap out of it. It is your responsibility to be in this world. It is not a given that you will have a good life. You need to make the life you want. I miss your sweetness. I miss your playfulness. I miss the way that you would hold my hand and tell me it was going to be okay. Your laugh. The fact that nobody would expect you to swear, and out of nowhere you would say, right on, mother effer. Or the fact that you told me that having sex with a condom on would be like washing your feet with socks on. And you told me this when you were 75 years old. The best days and the worst days were when we would go and visit you in Nova Scotia, because we would laugh all the way, knowing we were about to see you, and then on the way back to the airport cry the whole way, knowing we wouldn't see you for another year. In that last year, I am so grateful that you had Karen and Bill with you, my brothers and sisters. And I'll never be able to replace the fact that I didn't come out to see you that Christmas, because I thought I was going to see you in May. And then on January 8th, you slipped away in a lazy boy recliner watching Murder, She Wrote. You didn't even know that you were gone. But I know that you're gone every single day. I would give anything to hold your hand, to see you laugh, and for you to play with my hair. Every year at Christmas, we still put a plate at the table for you. And every day that I see red or I see a dime in the street, I think of you. The reality is that I think of you always. And if I ever feel like there's no purpose in my life, I know my only purpose is that I am your daughter. And for that, I will do my very best to keep making you proud, even though you can't see it anymore. I love you, I miss you, and I would give anything to hold your hand again.
I'm sure there's not a dry face in this stream. My goodness. Wow, that was really beautiful.
Thanks.
And I'm proud of you for making it through the letter, because I know how tough it can be reading those letters out loud. It was really, really beautiful. You said so much that just resonated. So now that you've read your love letter, I think it's important for people to understand the grief is one thing, but it is a reflection of the love that you shared with the person that you lost. And you touched on it a lot about how close you guys were and how much she meant to you. But for someone who never had a chance to meet your mom, just give us a little bit more of a backstory of like who she was and how much she meant to you.
I would love to do that. So she was amazing. She truly was, and is, frankly. She had 5 kids. She worked her whole life. She worked way too much. You know, we could barely get her to sleep. And she loved Elvis so much. She loved cooking. She loved making people laugh. She was ridiculous. We literally would not stop laughing when she was around. She's the reason why we are quite playful and loving people. Mm-hmm. She was loyal to a fault. She always put everybody before herself. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she was a chain smoker. She smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day for 75 years, and then woke up one morning and went, this doesn't serve me anymore. And she stopped cold turkey and she never smoked again. Wow. She decided that I was harping on her because she was putting on some weight and it was affecting her. And I said, come on, we're going to do this. So all of a sudden, again, she was 80 years old and she went on a diet. She lost 25 pounds and she was on the treadmill and she could only walk like for about 3 minutes, but she had a headband on and she had rock music on and she just did her thing. She was extraordinary in every possible way.
That's really beautiful. And it was interesting. Like I always tell people, you never know what a person's been through or is going through on this app. Like I'm sure there's so many people who see your streams and they see this, your personality, this happy-go-lucky person and this vibrant person. And so to understand your love for Red now makes perfect sense. So, and I'm sure there's plenty of people like, oh, okay, you know, it all makes sense now. So I thank you for sharing that with us. What do you think was your, and I don't want to Just assume, because you said something I think maybe I know, but what was your hardest part of accepting your mother's passing?
It was tough. That the first year was a year I never ever want to experience again. I didn't do well in my family. My sister, who actually found my mom, and I had it the worst. I'm the baby too, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that part was tough, to the point where I actually did go to grief counseling,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the game changer, because
Mm-hmm.
I felt I wasn't thriving, I wasn't existing, I was just walking through the world like a ghost. And I work in an industry where being fake, as it were, is very simple to achieve. So I just walked around like a fraud. I had no joy. And so it was a 6-week course, and there was 18 people in it,
Mm-hmm.
and they all had lost a parent. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a game changer, because we got to talk about them. We got to learn about the grief process in a way that I didn't understand before. And you touch on it. It's not a straight line. It's a propeller. And there's
Mm-hmm.
grief explosions on any given day. People decide you should be one way and you should be over it. And it's like, the reality is there's no right way to get through it. It's your way, in whatever that means.
Right.
And there were people in there whose parents had been gone for 10 years and they still had not moved from
Yeah.
grief to mourning. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even know that was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So having those skills to help me get there, how I felt after only 6 weeks of talking to people who had lost the people they loved the most, without having to be brave and not having to say the right things. Some nights we would sit there and listen to people just weep for an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't have to explain it. It helped immensely. And when
Yeah.
I realized that the relationship's not over, it's just had to transition to something new,
Mm-hmm.
that's really given me a lot of solace. And I miss her every single day. But
Right.
I really never thought that life could be joyful truly and authentically again. And
Mm-hmm.
it's only maybe in this last year that I'm starting to think, yeah, it can. And
Mm-hmm.
when good things happen now, I am way more happy and able to share it with her than just to feel sad that she's not here.
Right.
Because I'm sure you still go through that. Sometimes you're just like, this. I mean, she's 83. People say, oh, she had a good life. I'm like, it doesn't matter if she was 103. No
Right.
day would be the right day for her to be gone.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I just kind of own that now. And I'm not going to apologize for missing her, because she was literally the most extraordinary person I'll ever know in my life. And my heart will never be the same. It will
Right.
always be broken, but it mends in little tiny ways, in moments of joy. And that I'm eternally grateful for.
Yes. Ugh. Every it's just something. The reason I do this show. If you guys just coming in, welcome to Love Letters to Grief. The reason I do this show, I mean, you're literally giving me chills, is there are so many people who are dealing with grief and not able to find the words or the understanding of what they're experiencing. So hearing you say that is literally giving me chills, because you're speaking my soul. And if you've lost that person, as I say, your person, it's different. And I agree 100%. Grief counseling for me was a game changer. I tell people all the time, I don't know if I could have been okay without it, because I did a grief group with mostly widows. And in my head, I'm thinking widows are like 70, 80-year-old women. So I walk into this room and I see all of these other 30-year-old widows who all had children, ironically, that were 10 years old. And it was this unspoken peace that I felt, because I knew someone else got it. And I could, I talk to friends and family, and I'm sure you can relate to this. You can talk to your own sisters, and that grief is different because their relationship is different. And so sometimes just being able to hear someone speak so transparently is just so therapeutic to other people. So everything you said just hit, it was head on. Like it's never changed. It's like, I think for me the most beneficial thing that I learned in grief counseling, I spent the entire first year, because my husband passed away exactly 1 week after my birthday. So I spent the entire first year thinking, if I could just get through this first year, because you hear that so much in grief. Just it's the first year. Once you get through that, you'll be okay. And I kept thinking, okay, if I can make it through this year and I can get to my birthday, I'll be okay. And then my birthday hit, and it was the biggest disappointment of my entire life. And so I went to grief counseling that next week, and I'm crying uncontrollably to my counselor. And I'm like, this is not what I thought was going to happen. And she explained it to me. She said, you keep trying to get back this person that you were, and you never will. And I'm telling you, if I heard that 1 month in prior to a year after, I think that would have helped me tremendously, because I literally was chasing this fairy tale of a idea that couldn't happen. And so it's like you say, your heart, it's broken, and it's can't be completely put back together. So yeah.
We just learn how to just, and for you, I will say this, and the reason why I love Travel Bay is Mother's Day is obviously the hardest day ever. And this last one was especially hard, but I spent it in your stream, and it was the first time I saw Love Letters to Grief. And that episode helped me get through that day. And you touched my soul that day in ways you will never know. And so this show is important. And so that's why I will come here anytime and talk about my mom. And every time somebody is willing to come and do this, because that day, she's been gone now for, it'll be 4 years in January, but this last one was just gutted me. And you're just, what you're doing is extraordinary. And I just hope you do it always.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I'm happy that people come on and are this open with others, because like I always say, I know our streams are escape for a lot of people. We want to come on live and be happy and laugh and joke around, but this is a real part of life. Like, there are mornings where you wake up and the grief is so heavy, you have to just deal with it. And so yeah, we can have great funny streams, but the reality is these emotions that we're feeling are often, something that we're going through. It's like this wave of emotions. You never know when it's going to take you under or let you out. It's super, super tough. So what are some of the things that you do on a daily basis when you need to help yourself come out of one of those dark spots?
Well, like I said, the thing that I think works for me is like, my mom she was tiny too, and she was very, very sweet, but then she'd kind of flip. And so she'd be like, oh, stop it, Judas Priest, snap out of it, like just like that. So if I go down the rabbit hole too far, I just kind of go, you got to snap out of it. Because if she would give anything to be here right now, anything. This was not a woman who wanted to leave the world. So when I waste days and I have a pity party, I feel like I'm letting her down. So I do use her as my guide. She's my mom. She will always be my mom. And I lived to make her proud. So if I fail now, then I feel like I've let her down and I'm wasting this legacy. But sometimes I give myself permission to lean into it. Like some days you just got to let it happen. And so it's in little ways. I have this thing that I invented, and it's called 5 days, 5 friends, 5 things. And I do it when I'm feeling overwhelmed with missing her. And I'll only pick 5 friends. And for 5 days, we have to do 5 things that are just about like rejuvenating yourself. So sit on a park bench, have a conversation with somebody that you need to have. Do something for you, have a bubble bath. And they have to take a picture of it and they have to share it with our group. And they don't usually know each other. And there's no rules. It's whatever brings them joy. And I will sit there in those 5 days and feel so much levity, and it just really helps. Anyway, I'm babbling a bit, but
no, I love, tell us more. I love this idea. This sounds like a show, but I love this idea.
It's amazing because people are so hard on themselves, and we're all walking through the world like robots. It's like, I know people who don't even see themselves in the mirror. They're getting ready, but they're not connected with themselves at all. And I do that too. If I disconnect, I'm like, I don't want to be known for she worked a lot. Like she was great at her career. Who cares? I want to know that the day that I pass away, somebody is sitting there really sad that I'm gone, because I actually meant something to them in ways that had nothing to do with my career or whether I made a bunch of money or if I was pretty on a Friday, because somehow there was like this invisible connection that made it possible. And that's from my mom. So I think for people who are grieving, like honestly, if there's people in here who haven't figured out what to do yet, don't stop talking to them just because you think they're gone. You can talk to them anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
There's a lot of my friends in here and I love you all. I'm just ignoring you so that I don't get caught up in it.
Yeah, but that's very true. that was something I learned in grief counseling very early on. With kids, they have the ability like none other to keep the relationship going. And then I think our adult minds, we think we have to like end it. And my grief counselor explained to me, she was like, there may be days where you'll hear your daughter in a conversation, and she was like, I don't want you to be alarmed because it's natural. And I never forget it. I would hear her having full blown conversations with her dad at 10, and she always speaks of him like in present tense, like, oh, my dad said, or my dad is. She never says was, or, because it's ongoing. And I think that's something we as adults can learn from kids, that innocence of keeping that relationship open, because it's all about like you say, creating new memories of that person and understanding the relationship. She's still your mom. Like, he still was such an important part of my life. So to have people that you can talk about it with who care to hear about her has to mean a lot.
Oh, absolutely. We have this tradition too in our family that I don't know how you feel about poetry.
I love poetry.
But if I could read this quickly, we do it at
please.
everybody's funeral, and so maybe you've heard it before, but it's called "Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep." Mm-hmm. Have you heard it?
Maybe, but I don't care. Say it anyway.
Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I'm 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I'm the sun on ripened grain. I'm the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the sweet uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I'm not there. I did not die. And we do it at everybody's funeral. Mm-hmm. And it's like a touchstone in our family now. And we're getting old enough that a lot of people are dying. So I do say to people all the time, like, love people while they're alive. Don't wait, because this will be the biggest regret of your life. If you do not, if you've got relationships that are dysfunctional or whatever, you don't have to fix all that. Mm-hmm. But just make sure you know that the day their eyes close, you're not wishing they would open for one more chance. Like, don't waste it.
Yeah, that's so true. I believe that one wholeheartedly, because I've talked to a lot of people who deal with grief, and those who have regret have the hardest time dealing with it. Like, you take on grief with all its emotions, and then you add the component of guilt. Oh, it's like just burying a person. Like, it is so overwhelming. So I agree with that 100%. So have you become like the person that, do you feel like a lot of people reach out to you, like if someone loses a parent, like they send people your way, or have you been helpful to other people? Are you able to help other people during that time?
Well, my understanding is yes, because especially where I work, people saw what I was going through over that year, and they knew how much she meant to me, so they saw the effect her loss had. And some of them have now since lost parents. So there, you know it when people just find a sense of calm when they're near you, because they can just be who they are in whatever messy way that is. Mm-hmm. It helps me. I mean, I don't know. I'm babbling a bit here, but all I know is that, yeah, Ruby's hand on your back or sitting in silence with you is a good thing. Yeah. And they seem to know, because they do come to me. I have put people forward to that same program for the grief counseling. Mm-hmm. And it shortens that pain. It really does, because you have a proactive, productive way of moving through it instead of being stuck. Because the being stuck, like, I just felt like I was sliding further and further in mud, and I couldn't get my feet out. Mm-hmm. And it didn't matter. I could get up and I could get dressed, or I could go on holidays. I could, like, and Christmas, I hate Christmas now, and I loved Christmas. But I just make myself go do something anyway, mm-hmm. because she loved it. And it's like, don't be so selfish to say you hate something like that, because she would give anything to have it. So talking about it to people who've been through it, I do think is the most important thing to do, because friends will be as supportive as they can. Mm-hmm. But if you haven't lost a husband, or you haven't lost a child, or a mother, or a father, brother, whatever, we just can't We can't relate.
Yeah. It's like I always tell people, a person won't get it until they unfortunately have to get it. And then I don't even want you to understand it.
Isn't that the truth? In education, I don't want anybody to go through.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you said so much that I know has been super helpful. I can't wait to upload your video because I mean, you touched on a lot of things in like a really, I mean, you touched on a lot. So, okay, a lot of people always say, reach out to me when they have a friend, like, oh my God, my friend just lost her husband or her whatever, and they will ask me, what can I do to help them? And I always tell people there's a couple of simple things that you can do, but what would you suggest to someone that may not have experienced anything that we have, but may know someone that has or is going through it? What can I do to help that person?
Listen, and don't wait for them to tell you what they need. Just even and don't make them talk about it if they don't want to. But for real, like show up with a hamburger and sit on the couch and hold their hand.
Yes.
Like sometimes I just wanted somebody to, hold my hand because she can't anymore. And some days I would just give anything just for that moment again. And so it's tough. Nobody wants to be without their parents. Nobody. And we know it's a part of life, and you can be as academic or analytical about it as you want, but the reality is you will give anything for that moment. And so just be there. Don't try to talk them into what they should or shouldn't do. Just sit in silence. Sit with them in their pain for a moment.
Right.
And especially in the beginning, if you can get out of bed and get outside and get a little bit of fresh air and stop trying to be everything to everybody, like be super selfish. Right. Because you're never going to get that time back. And if you don't focus on the healing, I'm not kidding. And I'm sure you saw it too in that grief course. There was people there 10 years, their parent was gone and they were still paralyzed by the grief.
And
it was every relationship in their life.
Right. It's so scary. Like I met one lady, I think it had been like 14 years. And to hear her pain, it was scary, but it also was helpful because it lets you know there's not an ending point to it. Because you can think, okay, if you process it, you'll be okay and you won't feel this again. But it's important to understand that these emotions that you're feeling can and will come back. So when it does hit you again, you don't think you're going crazy. You're like, wait a minute, I'm 3 years in. What am I doing? Like, why am I falling apart? Because it's an unending cycle. It happens. So it was tough to see people that far out, but it was also helpful in the sense that they got it and they understand like what it felt to lose someone like that. So, and what you said absolutely about just being there. Like people say, well, I don't know what to do. Well, what do you need on a regular basis? Think about it. Like you have to eat. You got to clean up. Like there's so many things you can do that cost nothing. If you're good at cooking pasta, take the person a dinner dish. If you cut your grass, go cut their grass. Like just little things that people, yes. If you know the trash runs on Monday, go by and pour their trash cans to the road Sunday night. Like these little things are just like when you do these things for someone, it can be so small, but a person can actually feel like, wow, like there's someone else out in this universe that is at least thinking about me, because it's a very lonely place.
When my mom died, when I go through stuff like that, I want to be like, everybody leave me alone. I get hyper productive, and I close off. And my best friend lives in Florida, and she didn't say, what can I do? She said, I've booked my flight and I'll be there tomorrow morning. And she literally slept in the bed with me for a week. And she helped with all the bits of the funeral that she knew I needed help with, because I'm very particular about stuff and my family isn't. And she did everything. And she was like a fat kid on a Smartie with me. There was like, you name it, she was doing it. And we could laugh, like leaving space to laugh and just celebrate. Because it's depressing as it is. Like that time from when they pass until, if you believe in burial or whatever, that they go into the ground, people always go like, why do you have to have a viewing and why do you have to do all these steps? But I don't think people realize that that is a big part of the process, because you're in shock. Then you have to deal with it all. Then you literally see them dead.
Right.
And you get confronted with that. And to me, that's one of the best parts of the whole thing, because then by the time you're putting them in the ground or whatever you're doing, it just starts the healing. Like, it really does. The people are everything, everything. And if you've ever thought you don't know what to say to your friends so you don't call, don't do that.
Yeah.
We really do notice the ones who don't.
Right. And just what you just say, I tell people all the time, a phone call from someone that you love saying, I don't know what to say, is the most fulfilling conversation, because at least I know you tried to think of something to say. And saying just that means a lot. And I agree. Don't think, oh, I'm going to give them time. I'm just going to, I'm going to give them some time. No, like, be present. Let them know that the relationship that you lost meant something to you, to them as well. So if nothing else, just telling a funny story about the person you've lost or something. Yeah. So that's
why all the things. Like, it's all the things, Travel Bae. It's all the things.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are, like I say, if you've never gone through it, this grief thing is something that's going to touch every single one of us. We're not exempt from it. And thank God if you haven't had it yet, but you're going to have a friend that's going to go through something where you may have heard something that Ruby said today or somebody else has said, that you can offer that person some type of hope or faith or something to kind of hold on to.
Well, even what Thickamus just said there, right? The friends that she didn't hear from, it does hurt. And you just think, how at this time could that not happen? And they don't mean to do it sometimes.
Yeah, because sometimes people are just so fearful of saying the wrong thing. And I will say this for me, and I feel like I'm very level-headed, and I really try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I remember when I was going through it, I was giving people space even in those mistakes. And I was thinking to myself, if I'm having so much of a hard time dealing with what I'm dealing with, I can't imagine what my friends who watched me marry him must be feeling, seeing me go through this. Like, I had friends, I know for a fact that some of my friends, it was hard for them to even look at me, because I was the reality that you can lose your husband. And you're a reminder to people that they are going to lose their mom. And sometimes even that is too much for people. So sometimes people, they disappoint us, but it's not on purpose. Like, sometimes our grief may be too hard for somebody else to even handle. So I do just challenge people to give people the benefit of the doubt. If they've never gone through it, just charge to their head. Like, everyone, even if they let you down, don't charge to their heart. Like, they may be doing the best they can. And, and if people call you, don't give them this, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. Let people know how you're feeling. Because if you say to people, I'm okay, they don't know they need to help you. They don't know they need to be there. So people would call me and I would give them the raw. Like, how are you? Haven't eaten, haven't showered in a week. I can't stop throwing up. I'm depressed. like this, I gave them the real. Like, I drove down the street the other day, thought about driving off the bridge, but I can't swim. But like they were like, whoa.
That's also something I would say. I thought I would drive into that divider, but I think maybe not. Yeah.
But it was the reality of what I was feeling. So they would hear, they're like, oh, okay, she's not doing well. But and I make jokes about it now all the time. Some of my friends get really uncomfortable. But it's like my own way of dealing with it. But, I think we have to give people, like I said, give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, but allow people to see us transparent of how we're feeling, and it can help somebody else.
Yeah, we're not talking about my dad right now, but my dad passed away many, many, many years ago. And what I love about when the family all comes together and all your idiosyncrasies and we all want to celebrate in a different way, there was even humor in the passing, because you start to realize, especially in a small town, like wakes in a small town could be a reality series in and of themselves, because watching people come in and I'm thinking, like, should you come in? Because you're like 150 years old. I'm not sure you're going to leave. And they don't really know which wake they're at. They're just like, somebody died in town, so we're all showing up. So it's like a line up to a rock concert to go to a wake.
Right.
And so my dad was an artist and he was eccentric, and like honestly they needed to close that casket because at a certain point we were shoving so much stuff in there to keep him company. I was like, the lid is not going to close, like we need to get this together. And we did laugh, like we wanted a lock of his hair, and my sister Karen is very like, I'm quirky, she's like whoa, and she panicked thinking that she wasn't going to get the lock of hair. And this is something I would say to other people too: when somebody passes away, make sure you hold time for the family members to be alone one-on-one with the person, because
Mhm.
everybody under the sun wants to come and have their last moment, and you don't get it as family. So we
Mhm.
made it so that everybody had 10 minutes alone, 10 minutes alone.
Mhm.
My sister Karen was so worried she's gonna get this lock of hair. She comes out and she goes, I got my lock of hair. And I said, how did you do that? And she literally went like this and showed me the hair. She ripped it out of his head. That's how I'm like, I can't leave you alone. What the hell are you doing? But that's the kind of like, we had tea bags, we had paint brushes. Mom was like, we got to close this thing. I'm like, yeah, we do, or you're going to be in there. But anyway, it happens.
Right. It does. I get it. Absolutely. Okay. So, if there's, and I'm sure there's tons of people, like I say, who are in the stream that are listening for the first time. Um, what else do you think? And I agree with the grief counseling. I try to tell that to people all the time. A lot of hospitals offer grief counseling for free. People don't actually realize it. If you call your local hospital and just say, do you all have a grief program? Most of them do. And like I say, you don't have to pay for it. And the one that I did, the grief group was 8 weeks, but the actual individual grief counseling, they don't even give you an end date. They tell you can do it until you feel like you don't want to, and then you can come back if you want to. So we did it for a year, and we weren't even 6 weeks in, and we started. So what else would you suggest to people to kind of help them get through it? I know you talked about talking to people. I love what it was, it 5 days, 5 things, 5 people.
5 days, 5 friends, 5 things. Yeah.
I love that. So
I
what?
would say if you're not a writer, don't try to write. But if you are a visual, take pictures. If you
Mm,
like, I don't know, if you collect stamps or something, that just whatever reminds you of them that brings you solace, just hold on to.
yeah.
Because I take a lot of pictures. I'm a visual, I'm not a writer. So
Mhm.
even doing this love letter, I didn't even write it. I voice recorded it all and I just talked to her,
Mm,
and that's how it came together. And then I just cut and paste the things. So it's like, if you're not a writer, just send yourself, like, record it on your phone, talk to them, share with them. If you believe in going to grave sites, like when I go to the grave, I sit there and talk to my mom,
mhm,
and I still talk to her now. And find space, like go for a walk, and just it's okay to remember. There's nothing wrong with remembering, and there's nothing wrong with missing them and hurting.
mhm.
Stop trying to be perfect about it all. And oh, I did that, I'm all grieved, I'm all good, like they passed away, and now we just talk about who
Yeah.
they were and what they were. They still are, and they still will be.
Mhm.
And I just can't say enough, if you have relationships that are broken because of this, lean into that, because this will not serve you well, and you will not heal if you don't.
Mhm.
Even if you're not reconciling with the person, come to some kind of acceptance,
Mhm.
because if we don't get there, the mud just gets thicker and thicker. And
Right.
I never want to go through what I went through again, ever,
Mhm.
ever.
Absolutely.
But it's going to happen again. I have 5 siblings, I'm the youngest. What's the likelihood that I'm the first to go? It could happen, but
Right.
probably.
Mhm. Do
So
you feel like the grief of your mom has helped you with like the way you grieve now if someone passes away?
absolutely, yeah. My sister's husband, the same quirky sister, horrible, literally retired at 59. He retired on Friday, and then he died on Sunday.
Oh God.
Yeah. And so when that happened, she was like, all the things you don't want to be. This is the same sister who found our mother dead. So she's had it tough. But
Wow.
I was able to make that experience like really quite beautiful and meaningful. And she didn't have to do anything, but it
Mhm.
was like, I didn't have to talk to her about it. You have to show up. Just show up for people, you
Mhm.
know? And again, we're visual family. So we collected rocks, and everybody painted his name on a rock. And
Mhm.
then whenever I travel, because he always wanted to travel, we don't have any rocks anymore, but I took a rock every time because my sister always wanted to travel too. And I threw the rock in the water in
Mhm.
places in Europe, in places in the US, like wherever, and say his name and send it to her. Like any of those kinds of things that make it a positive way to remember. Because remembering the positivity is super important. Because you don't want the last image to be what you saw of them dead.
Mhm.
And so I really, like, people do what they want, but I say do not take pictures of them after they've passed. They wouldn't want
Mhm.
it. And it makes it very difficult for you to get that memory out of your head. I mean, people make their own decisions, but that's
Mhm.
kind of some of the stuff I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like you say, I love that we can take little nuggets of different people to and try things to see what helps us, because the more the better.
Yeah.
So I think the things you shared have been great. Your letter was absolutely beautiful. And what I started doing, I've asked people, if you want to reread your letter, you can, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. Because I know sometimes people come in and are like, wait a minute, what's happening? So if you want to, you can. If not, then you can just kind of give us a closing out, just kind of saying whatever you want to about your mom.
Yeah, I don't want to read it again if that's
Uh,
okay. Um, like I said, I really never thought that the sky would be as blue,
mhm.
and it's getting bluer. And I know that that will make her happy. And
I love
that's all I got.
And it was something you said. The color red makes you think of her. And did you say pennies on the ground?
Oh, have you heard about if you find a dime, it means somebody who's passed on is thinking of you?
Oh, okay, no, I've heard about the feathers,
Oh, I haven't heard.
and
I
yeah,
sprinkle.
like if you see a feather, like if you and I randomly find feathers, which I mean birds, but they say if you find a feather, it's like like a one of the like one of the feathers from an angel's wing. So it's like supposed
Oh,
to be like
okay.
really good,
Yeah.
like they're thinking of you. Yeah,
Yeah. The
you
dimes
always
is
find.
interesting because I'd never heard of it. And then the first dime I saw was when I got off the plane in Nova Scotia to go to bury her. And my
Hmm.
sister Karen will regularly send me photos, and she just kind of goes like this again with her hand, and she'll have like 6 or 7 dimes that she's found through the week.
Oh,
And it's like, is it true? Is it not? I don't even care because every time I see a dime, I think of her. You know, I
yeah.
couldn't buy a barbecue because I thought barbecues were ugly. And then I walked into a Canadian Tire one day and saw a red. It's my barbecue is my mother. I sit out on my deck and talk to the barbecue because the entire thing is red. I want to put eyelashes on it. I'm like, it's Bernie Bot. Like, it's just, anyway, I could go on about this for days. Just remember them and don't be afraid to remember them. There's nothing wrong with remembering. They're the most important people in our lives. Why would we forget them?
Right, I absolutely agree. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for sharing your beautiful letter and letting us know more about your mom and helping us understand you even more. I tell people you would be amazed. Like you can sit in someone's stream for hours, and sometimes you hear certain things that just make like I knew I love this person, but now I know why I love this person. So thank you so much. Currently searching for giant lashes for Ruby's barbecue.
I really love your show. I love what you're doing. And
Thank
I'm not gonna say all the people, but there's people in here who are some of the most important people in my life. And I just love y'all. So
you.
thanks for spending some time learning about my wee ma.
You're welcome. I'm thank you for coming on. Skylight does the admin for this show, and she is I have to give her credit. She's amazing. She finds the best guests for me. She connects me with people. She's like, oh, so and so lost this person. And it's things I may not know. So I thank her for helping connect us because I remember you I think I remember you saying something, but it's so many people in my stream that it's hard for me to kind of keep up. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing your letter. So are going to upload your video sometime this week, so you'll be able to click on the YouTube and see it. If you want to share it with your family or something, you can. And she's like, oh, maybe not.
Okay, thank you so much.
All
I'm gonna
right, thank you, love. And you guys, I did not overlook all of your comments. I'm going to kind of go back through here and read some of the comments because there was a lot of great things that were said. Hold on one second. So Finance Lake says she lost her mom passed away, but bless you with the biggest blessing ever. Went yes. Listen, let me tell you. Let me tell you about Lay. So I met Lay pretty early on when I was on this app, and she was telling me that she lost her mom. And Highlight, who is I call her my sis on the app. She is she is very blessed when it comes to seeing things, and guide kind of guides her to reveal things to people that they may not be ready for. And I never forget it. One day, Lay was at my stream, and Highlights had never met Lay. They'd never conversated before. And she started talking to her. She's like, "Oh, so I can see that, you're dealing with something really tough and you lost your mom." And she actually told her, she was like, "Well, God is going to bless you. You're going to have a daughter." And she was just telling her all this stuff, like, your mom is going to bless you with this daughter. And we were all sitting there like with goosebumps and crying. And Lay is pregnant with her little daughter. And so it's just like such a blessing to see that kind of come full circle. But I love that comment. Anytime I think about that, it gives me wings. Shauna says, "Don't post on social media." Yeah, social media posting can be super tough. A penny with a heads up is when your dad is around. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the feathers is something I never heard of the dimes. And I'm going to be like looking for dimes, and maybe I'll get like a little dime box with my daughter and we'll start looking for dimes and saving them. Um, I said, "Oh, if your kids took pictures, you told them you would hunt them." Okay. I had a sister who died at the age of 5, and my parents had a professional photographer. Oh, wow. That sounds really nice. See, I'm an event planner, so I think I'm probably a little different when it comes to that. I took pictures of my husband when I first went um to the funeral home. So I saw him when he passed away because there was a car accident. So I saw him there, and then I went straight to the funeral home once they got his body there, because I needed to get that image of him on the ground out of my head. And so for me, that image of him was very peaceful, because the way he died and how he looked after didn't make sense to me, why he looked so intact. So for me, it was very therapeutic to be able to see him like that. But everybody's different, for sure. Okay, I'm trying to make sure I didn't overlook anybody's comments. Hold on 1 second. We have to find a purpose in our pain. Just, yeah, I agree with that for sure. Okay, if somebody else said something that I should have saw, I apologize. Hope I didn't overlook anything. But thank you so much, Ruby Shoes, for being on here. You guys are so awesome. And if you guys want to be on the show, you can message Skylight or message me. Then I'm going to tell you to message her. But she can definitely get you guys connected with me so you can come on the show. At some point, Fine Aslay is going to come on and read her letter. I'm not going to rush her or push her, just a little push. Within a year, I lost my baby and my baby brother in a year. Oh, that's tough. And a lot of times they say grief comes in threes. I hear people say that all the time. Thank God mine didn't, because I couldn't have handled it. But if you guys are just coming in, we're finishing up Love Letter to Grief. We had Ruby Shoes who was on. I hope you guys all faved her. Go check out her stream. And this is just a reminder I tell people, we never know what a person's going through. We never know, what a person needs to say. So try to be kind to people. You never know who's sitting in your stream that may just be trying to escape from something in their everyday life. And you never know who may be coming to your stream as like their final stop. And you want to make sure you say something to a person that gives them some type of hope or encouragement to keep going. So just keep that in mind. I will say that this week it started out super tough because I met a streamer on this app. His name is, I'm not gonna get emotional. Let me get myself together. So when I first started streaming, probably the first or second day of going live, I met a streamer named Quiet Storm, and he loved music. He had a nice voice, and he was so funny to me because he would always stream with his lights dark, his R&B music playing, and he would have no shirt on. He was the funniest person to me because of that. So he was battling COVID, and he passed away on Monday. So I got a message from someone online about him passing away. His funeral was yesterday, and I initially wanted to go, and then I just realized that I couldn't. So I didn't go to the funeral, but I do have his family's information. So I was going to send some to his family. But it's just, it's like, it's crazy. Like in this virtual like world, we meet people and see them every day and talk to them, and we never really know, like when a person's last day will be. So we just need to remember to be kind to each other. And yet he was in my stream a couple of days prior, and he was joking about he was feeling better, and he had just left the hospital because he was having trouble breathing. And it was funny because he kept getting it back in the date box singing. And I remember I text Santi, I was like, listen, he can barely breathe, but he keeps singing to me. So it was so funny. Like I loved it. It was something funny that I had to remember him by, but it was so funny because he just kept singing. And he was like, yeah, I had a crush on you, Travel Babe, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but you just keep singing. Like, keep the breath so we can kind of be okay. But he was such a sweet guy. Like he was so I mean he literally was just a quiet guy. Like he loved music, and I really hate that his family's going through what they're going through. And I've been in prayer for his mom. He had 2 kids, and it's crazy. And I think like a lot of us are super private. You have a story about him on. Although a lot of us are like super private, but you have to make sure there's someone on this app that knows you outside of the name that's on this app. You know what I'm saying? Because if something happens, we need somebody to be able to come back and say, okay, so this is what happened to so and so. Because there's tons of people on here I wouldn't know how to reach them if I needed to, outside of sending them a message on this app, you know? So that's why having an IG is important, or just being able to connect with some people is good. So thank you guys for being here for Love Letter to Grief. Shauna, you said you have a story about him. I was having a day and getting trolled. He came to your box and went, oh yeah, he loved that. That's the Memphis in him. Let me tell you about Memphis guys. The guys from Memphis, I don't know how it is in other cities, they love to talk about each other. Like they will talk about you and have you laughing. Like they like to get at each other. So I'm sure that served him some happiness being able to get in your box. Yeah, you